Welcome back to the channel. Today we are working on the Cayman again. It's time to hammer at the firewall, quite literally. So let's dive into it and see what we can do. But before, look what came in today. Oh, powder coated parts. So SB powder coating came in clutch with this. We'll touch base on that in a little later in the video. So as you know, in the last video, I did say that the parts were going to SB powder coating for some coating. Well, I dropped them off and they said that it would be approximately a week. So I said, well, perfect. It's gonna be good. Give me the time to prep the engine bay, yada, yada, yada. Well, guess what? I dropped them off yesterday. It was close to 7 p.m. And at like 10 a.m. I got a message saying, Mark, your parts are done. So I was like, oh, shoots. But yeah. That's the kind of service that I like with SB powder coating. Not only that their coatings are awesome, everything, like they do everything top notch, but they also do it in really good timing. So don't expect to get your parts the next day, of course, depending what you bring, etc. But I gotta say that Serge and the boys at SB powder coating, you gotta use them. So I'll show you the parts. So this is the company, SB powder coating. This is their phone number. Look at them on Facebook. Definitely, if you need anything powder coated, the wheels will eventually go to them once I figure out the color. But yeah, SB powder coating. And these are the parts. So let's just put you on a stand and we'll start removing the plastic off of them. So actually, let's just get at it and do it this way. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. There you go. So these are the parts. So we got the front subframe, which right now it's upside down by the 2 sidebars. And then this. So again, SB powder coating, boys. Flip this around. So that's what it looks from this side. And then this is the top. So I'm happy we got these already, but I just put the block here to clean it. So we're not even ready to throw the block back in, nor have we done any work on the firewall, which we need to fix up a few things. So that's what we're doing today. But yeah, so I used some Casserole Super Clean just to clean most of it off, and I still need to clean up a few little spots here and there, but it's coming along. It's all dirty water. Well, dirty water and then there's solution. So yeah, we'll go to the car real quick and we'll see what we need to do. So here, so we need to end up cutting a portion of this because it wasn't enough. So we got to leave just probably 1/4 inch. You don't need to leave more than that, or remove all of it. We don't need to. We're going to need to cut into here to make some room for the alternator. The alternator is going to sit here, which that means we got to do the alternator bracket for the engine as well. And then we got to cap everything off, right? Because we don't want to leave this open like this, and we want to make sure that everything is still structurally sound after that. We got to find a way to mount this here with the e-brake cable. So once we have this all done, then we can put the engine in, mock it up to see how we can do this. And yeah, we got a cut on top here as well. Where the cables are passing through, we're gonna have to reroute that. Got to do a little bit of modification on top here. Not too much, but just bend a few little things. And we'll apply a coat of paint on these as well, just so they don't corrode. And that's about the work we need to do under here. So that is what we are tackling today. So again, there ain't nothing to it but to do it, so just let's go do it. So I do have Mr. Grinder, and I need to do some cutting. I know some of you have voiced your concerns that you can't see under the vehicle. I'll still try to do a little quick video, a little quick, we'll do some sparks. I don't have enough lighting, I guess, in the garage to light the underside of this. But let's go. Well, I don't know if you can smell this, but this is gas, and I know you can't smell it, but yeah. So I took down one of the gas lines and it saturated the floor. So grinding is not an option until all of this is completely dry. We don't want this to go up in flames. I knew it. I thought I taped it. Turns out I did not. So we'll clean that up, make sure everything is dry so we don't catch anything on fire. So, as you can tell, I did end up cutting a portion of this here. This portion where you see there's a little bit of light, I have to weld this again because that's on the inside. And same thing here. I thought it was a little deeper than this, but no big deal. Once we weld up the reinforcement plates, etc., we'll take care of that. Yeah, so I removed pretty much all the trim here and bent this back so we can, when we basically cap it all off and reinforce it, it's going to be easy to play with. And yeah, so that means one thing: the modifications have been completed to that portion. But whew, I get dirty so quick. Now that that is cut, what I need to concentrate on is we'll go to the engine. We'll bolt on the subframe to the engine, and we're gonna figure out the old alternator. So the alternator will go right here, and in order for me to mount that, I need the subframe. So I want to put it kind of as low as possible, but not high. You'll see what I mean when I put the subframe on, because essentially you can't be lower than the subframe. It's gonna hit into the subframe. Can't be too high because then it gets in the way of everything. So I want it as low as possible. And what we're going to do for the belt is we're going to measure exactly how long we need, and we're going to do a little tensioner here as well, or at the bottom. Not 100% sure yet where we'll put the tensioner. That's going to tension the belt, so make sure it doesn't slip off or anything. We're only running one pulley, and that's the alternator. The water pump will be an electric water pump. That means that there's no other accessories that will be run by a belt except crank pulley and the alternator. Later on, if we do decide to go putting AC, don't really need AC, but I guess it kind of would be nice. We'll put it on this side, so then we'll be able to find a way to loop the belt, etc., so it does both pulleys. So we might need to add another couple pulleys on there. But for now, that's what we'll do. I'll go grab the alternator and see approximately where we can fit it after the subframe is on, and we'll try to figure out some type of bracket that will hold the alternator there. It won't move. All right, so this is with the subframe on, and try to maneuver this. Well, I'll put you on a quick stand. All right, so this was with the subframe on, and the alternator, I'd like it sitting close to here, right? So it's higher than the subframe and low enough to have fun, I guess. So what I'll do is I'll try to figure out a way to hold it there so I can measure and do the brackets. A little rough bracket. And all right, so after playing a bit with it, I think this is where it's gonna go. I can't be sure yet because I haven't put it under the car, but this is just temporary. I just put this here just to make the spacing. Obviously we'll have to make sure that everything is solid. Get a proper belt. This was an old belt. And then make the brackets for the lower mounts, the top mount. This here is causing me an issue. Not an issue as far as it touching that, because there's still over, like, there is like 3/16 spacing at least there, so that's not a big worry. But that means that in order to put my cable, my charging cable, my power cable, the alternator needs to be off, the power cable needs to go on, and then the alternator. So that might cause an issue. We'll see. But for now, I think this is where the alternator would need to sit. So in order to know if that would work, or if it would need to be even further down this way, I need to bring it to the car and do a quick test fit. Of course, if this would work, it'd be easy. We basically make a bracket that would mount here, on top here. That would make like all one piece that would hold this. And then for the bottom, we'd make a mount that goes from here down to here, and even maybe incorporate here as well. This is where ground was, so I'm not 100% sure if we'd use this, but I think with these 3 bolts, it'd be more than enough to hold this alternator. And then once that is done, then we could actually make a bracket with a tensioner pulley that goes right here. So it would allow to have tension on the belt in order to make sure that it doesn't slip off or anything. And of course, in order to put the belt on, we need something that would have a little bit of tension. Otherwise, we'll never be able to fit the belt onto this, because yeah, this is a lot higher than where the belt sits. So it would be a pain. So yeah, let's roll this under the car, and we're not gonna bolt it up or anything. We're just gonna put it down, drop it, and see if we're in the ballpark or if we're totally off. But I think this would work, and this would make it pretty easy. The cable would be, the wires would be easily accessible. This, on the other hand, we'll deal with that. So yeah, let's roll this under and see if it fits. So it turns out my rough calculations were pretty much on the money. Just a little bit of trimming, because when I box it, it's gonna make life easier, but let's just go see. Now open my light, so I know that I can't really see well under here. But as you can tell, that's where the crank pulley is, and that's where the alternator is. So there is room. I just want to trim a little bit on this side here, just make sure we got amplitude amount of room. And I think for the tensioner, we'll try to do a bottom mount tensioner, just at the bottom here, just because it's going to be easier to access it. So we'll just probably use the mounts from the oil pan or something. Not 100% sure yet. That's something we can figure out with the engine out. So as far as room, that's all we need to do is just extend that a little bit, and we'll be all set. Oh, I guess I was showing you my phone, but there. This will be all set once we clear that up. All right, so now that we know that this is the way that we're gonna mount the alternator, because it fits in the car and there's a good amount of room around, what we're gonna do is measure for the belt. So what I did, show you a little quick trick, because obviously I can't go and say, hey, I want a belt for, don't know what kind of belt would fit. So what I did is I took an old belt and just clamped it and measured how long it would need to be. So this is a 6 rib, 36.5 inches long. So I messaged Mr. Awesome Parts Guy. So this is gonna get to his head. Not sure he'll be able to get out of the office tomorrow, because his head is gonna hit both walls, because I just mentioned it on the video. But I think he already found one, so that's awesome. So we're gonna get a belt from him, and By the way, it's Marshland Auto Parts and Marine, which is in Moncton. I don't know, I deal with Calvin there, so if you're in the greater Moncton area, message Calvin. So that's a quick plug for Calvin over there. So you better give me good pricing. And I asked him as well if there was if he knew, because he plays with car parts every day, right? If he knew of a tensioner setup that I would be able to make fit on this, that would be relatively easy. And we'll catch you tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have the parts then, and we'll be able to make the mounts and get that all done up. So, we'll see you tomorrow. And it's tomorrow. So, good news is Calvin came in and he got us a little belt. So I'll show you a little thing about this belt. So this is the part number. And it's actually, pull it up, it's truly cardboard there, but it's a belt that you can cut to length, which is pretty neat, right? Apparently you just put hot glue or something on it, and then, I don't know, so here's the belt. I don't know, looks a little odd. I don't know if Calvin sold me junk. I'm just kidding. Throw that away, and I'll show you what the belt looks like. So this is what the belt looks like. So we know that it fits, but it is not like super solid, and of course the alternator is not in its spot, and it's because it's not bolted on properly, right? But now that we know that there is a belt that fits it, we got to concentrate on making the mount, so the mounting spots to hold the alternator in place so it doesn't move. And once we're done that, then we'll look into adding a pulley, a tensioner that applies tension to, not sure if it's going to be the bottom or the top yet. Probably will be the top. I just got to make sure that it's easily accessible, because once it's under the car, if we need to change this belt, I don't want it to be a nightmare. So that is what we'll do. So today we'll concentrate on the alternator, make sure that everything is super straight and where it needs to go, so we can get the brackets done and complete that portion. So if somebody wanted AC, which I might go later on, then that means that the AC compressor would be on this side. So it wouldn't be high, it'd still be as low as this one. And as you can tell, it is low, but it's still higher than the subframe. We're not going to run into any issues with this hitting the road or anything. If so, then we've got way more problems than an alternator. That means that the underside of the car is completely trashed. So let's get at it. So in order to make this work, I need something like this that would go in behind here. And as you may know, cutting something like this with a grinder is not fun. So I'll show you a little something that works pretty awesome. And you can get this for super cheap. So this one is the one that has arc right away. Just a cut 50. So you can get these at places like Amazon. Like I think these ones on Amazon, they're like 200 bucks Canadian or 220, something like that. So in US funds, it's like $2 for you guys. You know, like probably like 140 or so US. And just make sure you get the ones with this tip, so you can arc at any time, compared to the other ones where you got to pretty much touch it every single time. So this won't be as precise, of course, as a CNC, but I don't have the CNC here. That stuff is at Jean. And I need this bracket tonight. So I'll show you a little bit. It cuts like butter. The only thing is I'm not super stable, and yeah, you'll see. So yeah, it's simple like that to cut. Just make sure that you don't do like I did. I just put on a breaker that has a bunch of stuff, so I just tripped the breaker. But this is pretty much already cut off. And the next thing you know is next thing you do is you just grind it to make the shape you want. So let me go click that again and then do that little final cut, and then we should be done. So this bracket, once it's all done, then we'll have a jig to make an actual fancy one. This will not be the fancy end of the line product, but it's gonna hold. It's just it won't be as nice and pretty as something that's all CNC cut and whatnot. But yeah, let me just cut this up here, and we'll be over. Just like that. This piece is super warm, but as you can see, we got our piece. So just cut off of this, and yeah, that's our piece. Of course, we gotta grind it down, make a nice shape, and remove the slag, but she will do, she will do. So here it is on just a piece of like exhaust tubing that's really not thick. The other one was 1/8. This is a lot thinner, but you can do pretty much anything you want. We did a nice little M there. So yeah, so it cuts through thin stuff like super easy. Right now it's only wired on the 110 volt. I didn't put it on the 220. That's why it keeps tripping the breaker. I could wire this to the 220 and won't be having this much problems. Of course, this was just, it came with a 110 volt plug-in on it, and I just left it at that. So if you wire it on the 220, of course you can do a lot nicer, cleaner cut and in a lot thicker steel. So I cut 1/8, it pretty much cuts like butter. 1/4 inch on the 110. It's starting to struggle a bit. It'll still cut, but not as nice and precise. But if you jump it up to the 220, you'll cut 1/4 inch, no problem. So it's a good addition that's super cheap that you put in your shop, and you can do art, you can have some fun cutting a bunch of stuff. Same thing as body panels. If you want to cut a car in pieces, that will cut it into pieces. So here's a piece I just cut, which is still a little hot, but essentially it's going right here to do the bottom part, and then we'll put some little pieces to straighten that up. Make sure this is all straight, and then we'll concentrate on the top. Yeah, woo, a little warm. So what I did is I just used these for tabs right now. Essentially what I want to concentrate on is get the mounting locations in the right spot. That way, once we make the bracket, if we want to replicate it, what we do is we make a jig with these holes. Like, we basically make another piece that looks like the engine type of deal, so we can replicate this and have nicer looking. This will do for now. Alrighty, so the alternator is stuck there. The belt still needs a tensioner, of course. And yeah, so I just did this real quick. It's not the final product, but it is good for now. Just so we can get at least a mock-up done. And again, basically this is going to be used to make the proper brackets. We need to know where it needs to sit in order to make the actual brackets out of obviously some nice cut metal. And yeah, that is how she sits. 2 bolts at the bottom, 2 bolts at the top. Then we'll put a tensioner on here, and that will finish up sorta where we want the alternator. As far as spacing goes, well, as you know, we are kind of short on here. Can't cut the mount because, well, there's only this piece that holds it. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to put the cable before we put in the alternator, and then we'll be all set. So we can remove the alternator with these 4 bolts and then put the cables on and then slide it back in. And well, put the engine back. You don't need to see me doing this 100 times per episode. So I'll show you a little bit of how it looks like. So you can tell it sits at the bottom there, which is out of the way from everything. And there's a good amount of clearance everywhere. So that's pretty exciting. So now we're ready to basically box things up and figure out the e-brake. So as you know, the e-brake sits where the crank pulley is now. So we got to do a little bit of modifications to set it in a little deeper, and we'll have to do some modifications on the inside. But right now, at least we know that we're doing something good. It's fitting in properly. But now I want to throw on the intake manifold to make sure that everything is good up there. Rough calculated it. You can't put the intake on if the engine is installed. You got to put it on before the engine is installed. So a little bit of pain in the ass, but should work. So let me go grab the intake, lift up the car a little bit, and see if that fits. Well, it's a brand new day. I know for you it doesn't seem like a new day, but after I said I was going to look to see what the fitment was like, I lifted up the car and I said, oof, I don't think this is going to fit. So I had to do a little bit of modifications, but I didn't do it that night. See, I only work on this thing nights and weekends, right? So it is a side project. It's not something I work on full time. So that's why it's a little slower to get updates. And then I picked up a new addition for the shop, which we'll see in the next few videos. So I'm pretty excited about that, but that's going to cause a lot of work and have something to replace, to fill in this side here, right? It's pretty empty, other than a bunch of parts. So that's coming up soon. So let's just go up and I'll show you what it looks like. So climbing up here is pretty sketchy. But yeah, so this is how it looks. So that's its final resting position. So as you can tell here, there's not a whole lot of room for where the fuel rails are. Yeah, so you can see there. I think you can see. But anyways, it fits. We got to say it quick, but it fits. It fits well. As you can see here for the intake, obviously we're gonna have to do a little something. What I'm thinking here is CNC cutting a plate that matches up here and just doing a quick radius bend going downwards. Not 100% sure. I think I'd be better off using an LS6 intake because it wouldn't be this high and it would be 4 bolts on the side. And of course, guys, I'm doing this as my own mounts. I'm not buying anything. So it is a little different than what you might buy on the market. I think they all recommend using the LS6 because it's got the 4 bolts. But that's no issue. I'm not worried about that one bit. So we'll need to figure that out. But yeah, other than that, like, honestly, I can't ask for better fitment. Like, there's loads of room on both sides. I can even put a turbo right here. Well, maybe let's just not push it. Put 2 turbos under here, but yeah. So one of the things I was thinking of doing, which I didn't rule it out completely yet, but would be to put a glass here, right? So it would be separated. So the trunk itself would be separated from the cab, and we could always remove this, make nice intakes and whatnot, but then we lose the trunk. I kind of want to keep the trunk, so I haven't decided what I'm doing yet. But let's just quickly throw in the metal cover and see if that still fits. I've got I'm pretty sure it won't because of this, right? There's a big gap, so we need to modify that. But let me just put you on pause and we'll throw it on. All right, so yeah, definitely this will not fit at all on the back. And it hits the front, so it hits right here, right? So again, this would all be fixed. I used an LS6 because it is a few inches up, about an inch, 1 inch, so it's pretty much the difference. But yeah, I could always modify this to make it work if I really wanted to. It would just have a little bump in this area right here where it's hitting. But time will tell with that as well. Of course, this is a more of a time will tell type of project because building it as we go. I'm not worried if you're worried, and I'm not worried. It's just cutting, welding. Anybody can do it. Not the end of the world. And if we take a look at the underside again, look, I've got a little flashlight that I can show you. So the alternator goes here, loads of room there. I still need to do a little bit of trimming up top here, but other than that, like once we cap that up, we'll be in a good standing here. Oh, and I'll show you what I want to do with the pulley here. So let me just grab the pulley and show you that. So this is just a random pulley that I pulled just for this demonstration. I don't know if I can put light on here to show you. Maybe if I put my, there's no way to need to hook the cell phone maybe like this. Yeah, you can see a little bit. And essentially what it is, I want to put a pulley that applies pressure up top here, and with a little adjustment that I can tighten it and screw it, so if we need to change the belt, then it's easily accessible. So I'm not going to put it on the top because obviously there's not enough room. It's going to be at the bottom where it applies the pressure. So that's what still needed to be installed. I'm still not 100% sure if I want to build it using a pulley like this, or if I want to buy like an ICT billet. But if I buy an ICT billet, I gotta know one way or the other, I gotta cut it and make it work anyways, right? So I might just end up using one of these, or even just going and get a metal one. Obviously it's not something that, plastic one would be good enough. This came off of an LS, so it's not the end all of the world. So now the recap, we've got that cut. That's exactly where it needs to go. So we got to do a little bit of reinforcement now, because that's where she's going. We got the alternator in place. That's where it's going. We got to do the pulley, install the clutch. So when it comes to the clutch, I did not order a clutch yet. I'm still debating on which manufacturer I go with, etc. But I think what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to throw everything together using the stock clutch. Is that something that's going to last? Is that something I plan on driving with? Probably not. Maybe do a few donuts and see if it lasts at first, but I still want to get an aftermarket clutch. Just right now, with all the shipping weight and whatnot, I've got the stock clutch, which is in perfect condition. I might as well throw it on the flywheel and throw it all in and get the ECU ordered so we can do a fire up sooner than later. I've got my water jackets coming in. They are shipping next week. They are custom made, so that is coming. And yeah, so pretty much once we weld on the firewall to get everything all done and looking nice, we got to do that, throw a coat of paint. Obviously I'm not going overboard with the engine bay paint and the firewall paint. That's just going to be a spray bomb action. It's hidden, you won't be able to see it even if it would be super nice paint. So we'll do that, get that welded. What else? At that point we can throw the engine in. Got to put the clutch, we can put the axles on and pretty much button up the whole back of the car, which would be great success. And then we will actually need to do at that point the intake and all that stuff that revolves around it, the exhaust, the cooling system, yada, yada, yada. There's still loads of stuff to do, but the engine itself could go in its position and stay there. That's awesome. Alrighty guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Now you can clearly see how the engine will fit in the engine bay. what modifications we need to do, what we've done, and you can see the bigger picture of how it's going to look. Obviously, there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more episodes left. So again, at the end of the day, guys, there ain't nothing to it but to do it. Thank you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace!